there's some other stuff we need to get into. Do you want? Let's do some Ukraine. You want to do some Ukraine?
I think that's what we need to do right now, because there's a lot that's not being told, and it kind of lends credence to my whole kabuki theater. What we're seeing, everything's going to as planned, and I think that would be the back and forth between Trump and Zelenskyy. So
okay, let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to start with the more recent stuff, and we'll work our way back. I like doing starting with the recent and work our way back. So let's go with this. All happened yesterday. This is Trump. He's actually in Miami, and he's having a little investor conference, and this guy is not holding any punches when it comes to Zelenskyy. Let's hear what he had to say yesterday, and I'm going to show you guys the tweet he followed up with. It's pretty crazy, pretty crazy. Here we go.
Think of it, a modestly successful comedian. President Zelenskyy talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years, never would have started. But a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. They'll never settle that war without our involvement. That's why they did such a great job this weekend. That's why Saudi Arabia did such a great job this weekend in hosting. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed. They get their money back. It's a form of a loan. Nobody knows that. I know that. I said, why isn't somebody saying, we do it the same way? And we spent much more money. We have to equalize. But while the United States gets nothing back, so they get their money back. It's a loan. We just give our money. And we had a deal based on rare earth and things, but they broke that deal. But they broke it 2 days ago. We had a deal because I said, we're spending $350 billion, and Europe gets their money back in the form of a loan, and we don't. We're just giving the money hand over fist. That's the Biden administration for you.
Man. So, and then he follows that up with another True Social post. Here we go. I'll try to read through this one. Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Zelenskyy, talked the U.S. into spending $350 billion, going to a war, couldn't be won, never had to start, but and he's right. That's the highlight. If I would highlight that, never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The U.S. has spent $200 billion more dollars than Europe, and this is where Trump the businessman comes out and he goes, "Hey, why are we paying everything? You're not paying everything." But I want to highlight the part about it never had to start. You know this. I know this. All of our viewers know this. We've been covering this thing as long as our shows even existed. I think Ukraine was the first topic we took on aside from COVID. We were saying this is a proxy war. This is something NATO pushed. This is something that they wanted to do before 2022. They wanted to do this back when it was supposed to be Hillary in office, as I know we've had that discussion as well. So before you chime in here, Craig, so the viewers are caught up on this, I want to show, and I think Niko House does a great job breaking down everything that led up to this, and then I want to get your thoughts on this. So here's Niko House doing a quick breakdown of the back and forth, because Zelenskyy fires back to Trump. It's like this back. It's pretty gnarly to watch. But here's Niko House.
Talks between Russia and the United States. Zelenskyy has now accused Trump of living in a disinformation space. So in the last few days, Trump has actually accused Ukraine of starting the war between them and Russia, which is objectively true. And Trump, along with Putin, have called for Ukraine to hold elections.
Hey, I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. We haven't had elections in Ukraine. Well, we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine. We're the leader in Ukraine. I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating. And we're a country has been blown to smithereens.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think everybody kind of forgot that Ukraine basically turned into a dictatorship under Zelenskyy. and no one really talks about it. Now, in response to Trump's comments, he claims that Trump is living in a world of disinformation. Zelenskyy goes on to say that he doesn't even want to entertain the idea of approval ratings because that implies that an election is going to happen and there's not going to be one. Yeah, not sure you're helping your case there, bud. But he says he saw something recently that no one else was seeing except for him that shows he has a 57% approval rating. Oh, okay, Zelenskyy. So if you have a 57% approval rating, let's ask some of the media outlets to check and confirm just to verify that that's true. Oh, that's right. You got rid of literally every media outlet that criticizes you or challenges you in any way. Yes.
So these are the things. I'm going to stop there because we're running short on time, and I want to just understand this, Craig, that we've been covering. I'll say this again. We've been covering this. The mainstream has been doing the opposite, and too bad. So many people, so many victims of the disinformation campaign about Ukraine and this Ukraine theater that's been going on since 2022. And erasing history, erasing what happened in 2014 all the way up until February of 2022. It's all gone, starting with Oliver Stone's movie about Ukraine on fire, gone from Netflix. Everything just erased. And this misinformation campaign, we've known that Ukraine is the opposite of a democracy, and no one wants to listen. And now it's all out on the table. And if people aren't listening now, I don't know what to say. This is just one more tweet here. I'm gonna put this up because this is David Hogg. He says, and this is the epitome of the idiotic take from wherever you call it. I don't know if it's the left or it's the establishment. I trust my CNN idiotic mindset person saying if we abandon Ukraine, Poland is next. You know what's going to be a lot more expensive than finishing this war and forcing Putin out of Ukraine? A third world war and a second Marshall Plan? What? We are arguably in the most important moment in geopolitics since World War II, and our president is letting a strongman castrate us and our ally. What the F? And then Scott Ritter comes back and says, David, you are a young, idealistic man. Buy a ticket to Ukraine.
That's what I would say.
Shut the F up.
Yep.
And then I like this. This was a little, thank you for the greatest ratios of all time. I always like that when someone gets a little more ratio than the person who posted. So, yeah, just throwing all that out to you, Craig. But this battle between Trump and Zelenskyy, is it going anywhere? Are we exposing more for the common person who wasn't paying attention right? What is happening now in this moment? Because a lot of people voted for Trump because of this issue and put everything else aside. Is anything of substance happening here with Trump calling his ass out, doing everything that we knew Biden was not just incapable of doing, but he never would have done? Your thoughts?
Well, I would just want to say at the end of the day, if a war ends, it's great, no matter what. Any way you look at it, no matter what led up to it, who's responsible, who has blood on their fingers, how it started. If it ends, that's a good thing. And we should want that right away, you know. And Donald Trump knows that, and he knows the majority of people in the United States feel that way. And that's why when he says those things that he said on the debate stage, people are dying. People are dying. We need to stop it. If it never would have stopped, it would never start if it wasn't for me. And that, which, you know, I think that's such a lie. Donald Trump was nowhere to be found when the Minsk Accords were going on, when they were trying to figure out, is it the Minsk Agreements or the Minsk Plan, whatever. I don't know if it's
Minsk Agreements, Minsk Accords,
you know, people will get me on that. The Minsk, the talks in Minsk about ending that war, Minsk 1 and 2. Yeah. Donald Trump was nowhere to be around. And in fact, he provided weapons. Tom Cotton was on CNN, I think, last week, or MSNBC, one of the left establishment, synthetic left channels. And they were talking about the way Donald Trump gave the Kiev regime weapons that Barack Obama wouldn't do. I believe it was javelins, but you can look into it. Like I said, there was record-breaking contracts to the Pentagon when Donald Trump was in office, whether it be arming the Saudis to kill the Yemenis in that region, or in Ukraine to kill, ethnic-speaking Russians in the Donbass. Let's not forget that, you know, when he withheld weapons because he wanted some information, the Democrats forced him, and he went through and sent those weapons anyways. And I heard, once again, I think it was Tim Ryan, I think his name is, the ex-congressman who ran for senator against J.D. Vance and lost, was on Bill Maher, and the question was hill to die on, hill not to die on. And no, that's not a hill to die on. That's not a hill to die on. Well, it came to the question of Russia. That was a hill to die on. And it's really just mind-blowing to see the left be so pro-war right? They've taken all the stories, but this is what you get when you have a tribal mentality and you can swing people any way you want to go. So the left, then not one member of Congress on the Democratic side, not even what's her name, Barbara Lee, who voted against the AUMF, has come forth and said we should stop doing this. It's ridiculous. I think the Republicans who have done it only do it for political expediency. You know, people talk about Josh Hawley all the time. When he was questioned the other day, somebody got him by the elevators going up, Matt, and they asked him, hey, Trump said that Zelensky's a dictator. I wouldn't go that far, he said, but Putin, he's the dictator. So the whole congressional body is all anti-Russia at the end of the day. They're just using this talking point of going away, and what Donald Trump is doing now after all the damage he's done, after when it's so late and Ukraine's probably run out of male bodies to even put on the front line. But I think the argument that's being missed is the fact that Donald Trump is going after Zelensky in this kabuki-like theater way, once again, this WWE way, while we're ignoring the real people behind this whole situation. One of them being Igor Kolomoisky, who is the Zionist oligarch born in Ukraine that bankrolled Zelensky, bankrolled him in his acting career. He's like to Peter Thiel to JD Vance. That's what Kolomoisky was to Zelensky. And those are the real people you have to look at. He's also paid off Hunter Biden, gave him the Burisma job. That was right. Kolomoisky, Joe Biden, Kolomoisky. And from what I also heard, there was backdoor deals. I don't know if it was backdoor deals between some business interests between Jared Kushner and Kolomoisky. And it wouldn't surprise me because you can go online, you can easily find a picture of Kolomoisky standing at the Knesset with Ariel Sharon and other Israeli prime ministers. This is the real guy behind what's going on. Gonzalo Liro told us before he got arrested, or before he got killed by the Ukrainians, arrested. I'm sorry, Gonzalo. He said Zelensky is nothing more than the finger puppet to Kolomoisky. Why won't they address the Kolomoisky situation? Why? Zionism. Here we go again. I mean, that could be a top censored news of the week. The fact that nobody's mentioning Kolomoisky, the man behind what's going on. And the Democrats go, well, he was arrested. Yeah, they walked him in. They didn't even put him in handcuffs. No. And they put him under investigation for some unlawful bank deals, supposedly. But he's not going to spend any time in prison. And he was the guy behind the guy behind the guy. And nobody's talking about him. And once again, this is why I can tell you, Donald Trump was full of shit. And now he's picking this fight for Zelensky because it looks good. Sorry. Yep. Zelensky's just following orders.
Do you think this battle between Trump and Zelensky, is it obviously some of it is theater, but do you think any of it is going to is it a means to an end to do the thing he promised to get to this end point, end this war? Are we heading in that direction? Are we getting to that goal?
I think we have to concentrate in other areas. I think we've run the well dry. We've done what we could do. Any points that we needed to prove, we proved, or any things that we tried to do, we've kind of also now lost, right? Whether it be us, we can't do what we used to do. You know, we can't have a proxy war and bleed the country dry, Russia. You know, when Nancy Pelosi says, you know, Putin has still not gotten over the humiliation for what happened in Afghanistan. Well, you know, that was the United States funding the Mujahideen to move Russia out of a country. We can do that this time. So whether it's us learning that we've just, you know, it's going to be a multipolar world now, and it's not going to be the way it was, and that's the lesson we learned. We've learned that we should have learned that a long time ago, but it's getting too much of a public PR nightmare, and too many people are saying. I mean, when you talk to people in Hawaii, when you talk to people in the Carolinas, people in Hawaii and Lahaina who lost their house in the fire or loved ones in fire, people in the hurricanes in the Carolinas, they'll tell you, how is it that they send all this money to Ukraine, but we get a check for $700? Too much of that has been said. So they know they have to wrap this up, and they have other areas that they need to concentrate on. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But for Donald Trump to say it would have never started, and that's another disagreement I have with Judge Knapp. No, he played his part, ladies and gentlemen. He played his part. And right now, he's not even acknowledging the real problem, and that's Igor Kolomoisky. That's the money. That's where the money's coming from.
That's the money.
That's where it's coming from.
That's the money.